We have the scale and the strength to invest in people, processes, R&D, and we all know competition spurs innovation. Customer loves innovation, I love innovation, and the employees love innovation. From a shareholder perspective, this fills in a gap in our portfolio, which are the weapon systems. And I think when you look at the budget, you look at the national defense strategy, this is an absolute growth market. We're going to add $7 billion of backlog, 3x their annual revenue. It's accretive on EPS, accretive on cash, and makes a lot of sense financially. And then the employees, can't wait to welcome the 5,000 employees to L3Harris. We're a technology company, they're a technology company. We're focused on national security for the U.S. and our allies, and 50,000 strong after the merger closes. It's going to be exciting.
I want to get more into what this means in terms of a future L3Harris portfolio and what Aerojet brings to the table, especially because space has been such a big outsized growth area, including when it comes to defense spending. But first, what makes you feel confident that you can get this deal done in front of the FTC when Lockheed couldn't?
Yeah, well, that was 2 years ago, different time, different company. I think the government is going to look at four things. Number one, they're going to look at, does this strengthen competition? And it absolutely does. Secondly, they're going to say, does this bolster the defense industrial base? This company will have the strength and the power of L3Harris behind it. It does. They're going to look at us and see that these are two new markets we're getting into: weapon systems, space propulsion, no overlap, no vertical integration. And then they're going to look at the concept of merchant supplier. You know, L3 was formed 25 years ago as a merchant supplier. It's an interesting term. It basically means, will you sell your products to whoever you need to? Aerojet has that business model. We're going to maintain it. We absolutely want to sell these to the primes, to the OEMs, to the end user. So when you look at those four criteria, I think it makes sense. There'll be a thorough review. We'll respond. They'll respond. I respect the process, and we'll see how it plays out in 23.
The merchant supplier piece of this is certainly key, and I think about CEOs at other defense primes who are very vocal about the last potential tie-up with Aerojet. Greg Hayes at Raytheon coming to mind, who had said that Aerojet needs, quote, adult supervision. Just recently, given the fact that the company is going through a lot, has come through a lot, how do you apply adult supervision to that supply chain, which has been an issue for Raytheon and many others?
Yeah, and as you can imagine, I've reached out to Raytheon, ULA, Lockheed, and all of our customers last night. So we've already been in contact, and they understand our strategy and what we want to do. I think the entire industrial base is struggling with supply chain challenges. It's pretty well documented. And I think we have the processes and the controls and the people that are going to be able to help improve the performance of this company. I go back to the L3 and the Harris merger. You know, we took out over $600 million of cost. We have common systems. We have common processes. We understand the industry. We understand operations. We understand program management. And I'm excited to get this deal behind us.
So talk to me a little bit more about portfolio mix and what that's going to mean in terms of future earnings. I ask that because a big portion of the L3Harris portfolio is quote-unquote short cycle business. According to Jefferies, it's about 40%. Aerojet Rocketdyne, 100% long cycle business, which means that some of those big revenue opportunities on the horizon for Aerojet are going to be coming down the pipe in a couple of years. Things like nuclear deterrence, missile defense of the homeland, ULA, which you mentioned, the new Vulcan rocket, which has a huge launch deal with Amazon's Project Kuiper satellite constellation, NASA's Artemis, hypersonics, which eventually will become more meaningful within the defense budget. I guess I sort of just laid it out, but how do you balance that portfolio versus the amount of debt you're taking on, both between this and the Viasat acquisition?
Yeah, no, great question. So when I look at our portfolio, L3Harris historically is known for situational awareness from space and air. And the sensors, we have sensors in space, air, maritime, and ground. So the missing piece, you know, was the weapons. And then a couple months ago, we announced Viasat, which I know how we feel about acronyms, JADC2, connecting all that. So I feel real comfortable that when these two deals are behind us, we have the portfolio in all the right domains, all the right areas. I wouldn't anticipate doing anything for several years. And in fact, we have some non-core assets that I'll probably sell in 23 when the financing market turns around, pay down the debt. So that's how I kind of see the next couple of years playing out.
Chris, if I could come back to the antitrust question, you mentioned that you spoke with Raytheon. I don't know if it was Greg Hayes or management team there, but you know they were one of the key opponents of the last deal, Lockheed Martin. Did they give you any assurances that they won't give you any trouble here?
No, we exchanged emails, gave him a heads up. He congratulated me, and we said we'd get together and talk about the future together. But you know, they understand the importance of these systems, getting to them so they can meet their ultimate commitment. So it was a good exchange, and we'll see how it plays out. But I'm hoping he'll be supportive, as will others.
Sorry, go ahead. Quick follow on the financials as well. I'm just looking here. Their margins are well below yours. They're at 14%. Is that an opportunity for you, or is that more a function of their business in terms of where their adjusted EBITDA margins stand right now?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity, absolutely. I think we have a good track record of being able to improve margins through our continuous improvement program, the leverage of being part of a larger organization for supply chain and such, and I think that's something we'll be able to work on. We're all struggling with the inflationary headwinds. These contracts tend to turn over every year or two, so we'll be able to reprice them based on current cost and pricing data. So I'm excited about the margin upside as well.
Okay. NDAA, the Defense Policy Bill, Annual Defense Policy Bill, just signed into law. It authorizes an 8% top line increase in defense spending. When would you expect to start to see that increased money, that increased demand result in sales, and how does supply chain factor into that, since I know you, along with everybody else in the industry, has been dealing with those issues?
Yeah. Well, we actually need to get the omnibus bill passed because we're still in a continuing resolution. So I'm hearing that could happen this week. So once we get the appropriations approved, 75, 80 days into the year, later than any of us like. The only people that dislike the continuing resolution more than industry is our customer. So we have to have a budget. When that happens, I think awards are going to start flowing. We have the short cycle business, so we can see some things in 23, the longer cycle business thereafter. So 8% is great. You and I were out at the Reagan National Defense Forum, as you recall. I think the administration's done a great job laying out the national defense strategy, aligning a budget to that strategy. We need to get it approved, and then the money can flow to the industry and down to the suppliers.
All right, my final question for you. You pointed this out to me, and I'm going to bring it up now on TV, but you took over at L3 in 2018 as CEO. That was almost 5 years to the day. You actually joined me here on set at the New York Stock Exchange when that happened. Since then, you've merged with Harris. You bought Viasat earlier this quarter, now Aerojet. Somewhere in the middle of that, or I should say earlier this year, you struck that deal with Shield Capital to develop future technologies as well. What does the future look like for L3 Harris? What are you working towards? And are there more acquisitions as a part of that future?
Yeah, well, great question. It has been a busy 5 years now that I reflect upon it. Look, 23 is going to be very straightforward. We're going to have to focus and execute on the programs that we have. We have 3 separate segments. Those leaders are going to focus on the customers, the strategy, and their programs. We're going to get Viasat integrated. That should close hopefully in January of this year. We've cleared the HSR process. NSA's approved it. UK's approved it. We're just waiting for Australia. So we'll integrate that. We'll get Aerojet approved and start that integration. And then we'll make some divestitures to pay down debt. So I think 23, 24, 25, it's going to be focused on execution, grow organically, de-lever a little bit, keep our investment grade rating, and then see where we go beyond that. But we're having a lot of fun, and it's just great to be on stage with you and David again.
Chris Kubasik, CEO of L3 Harris, thanks for joining us today.
All right, thank you. Happy holidays.
You too.
Well, still to come right here, we'll give you the results from CNBC's Millionaire Survey. Well,